Hello, I'm Tyler, and today we're going to learn about the major scale, but we're going to turn it into scale tones, 1 through 7. That's the notes in a key, and we're also going to turn it into intervals. And how do we take those intervals and how do we move them down a string? So, for example, this is a low E string. How do we move them down to an A string? One thing to remember is 3 and 4 are always together, 7 and 1 are always together. All right, so here we are. Now, if I was wanting to take a 2, which is a whole step from 3, and take it to a 3 on the A string from the low E string, how do I do that? Well, I put 2 frets in between it. Whereas if it's on the same string, it's only 1 fret in between. But if I'm going down, now I got to put 2 frets in between. And once again, 3 and 4 and 7 and 1 are always together. So once I go down to that 3, then guess what's right next to it? That 4. And then our intervals all go the same from whole steps, which are a fret in between. So we've covered whole steps. Now let's talk about half steps. For example, 7 going to a 1. If I'm on the same string, it's right next to it. But if I'm shifting a string down, then there's 3 frets in between, and I continue my count from there. So 1 to 2 is a whole, 2 to 3 is a whole step, and then 3 and 4 are always together, as we discussed earlier. All right, here comes the good old B string, which moves everything 1 fret to the right. So I still know my intervals, but I have to shift it 1 fret to the right to go to the B string. So in this example, a whole step, there's 1 fret in between going from 4 to 5 as opposed to 2 frets. And then a half step, there is 2 frets in between as opposed to 3 frets in between, as with the 3 and the 4. So here's the cool part. You've learned numbering for the notes in the scale, you've learned intervals in between each, and you've learned how to take them up and down the strings. With that being said, you've actually learned modes as well. So, for example, if you see the 3 up there and I was wanting to play in the Phrygian mode, well, guess what? I just start my counting at 3 and I go from there. Same with Lydian if I start at 5.